this took so long. This is part 2 of when I almost took custody of my client's baby. So she starts hemorrhaging rapidly and she loses consciousness very quickly. It's either she loses consciousness or they put her to sleep. I'm not exactly sure what happened. Probably she lost consciousness, but once again, I'm not clinical. I'm in a support role at this point. So the operating room is full of people. After a good bit of time, because I'm an employee of the hospital, they didn't immediately rush me out of the operating room, but shortly after some time, they escort me out the room with the baby and the baby nurse. So myself, the baby nurse, and the baby go into the PACU recovery room area, and it's an area that is full of different suites almost, or cells. I hate to say cells, but different areas that are separated by curtains. And so there's a curtain, an area, enough space for like a gurney, and the vital machines, and then a bassinet, and then there's another curtain, and then there's another set, and I think there's probably 4 or 5 different cells. I'm sitting there with the baby and I have no idea what to do, and after a little while the baby nurse gives me a bottle and says, do you want to feed the baby? And I wanted to feed the baby, so I fed the baby, and I'm looking through the baby, he's looking at me. I'm holding this little baby, and I have no words. And I actually have a picture of me and the baby. Obviously I'm not going to share that because HIPAA. And so that happens. I can't tell you how much time elapsed from the time that I went into the PACU with the baby and the time mom came out. But at some point, mom comes out and she's stable but unconscious. And so I'll fast forward a little bit. A lot happened in that time, but the time that she delivered, I left the hospital probably around 2 or 3 a.m., maybe a little bit later. Mom had regained consciousness. She was doing okay. She was in intensive care, but she was doing okay, and she was stable, and the baby had done well this entire time, so she didn't need to go to the NICU. But she did end up going to the nursery that night, or she stayed with the nurses that night, so that mom could really focus on recovery, and they would bring the baby in every so often so that mom could see the baby, is my understanding. And so my plan was to leave that night, go home and get some rest, because I had been there since 6 in the morning that morning, and it was now 3 in the morning the next day. My plan was to go home, get some rest, and then come back and see her at some point the next day, so probably early afternoon. But because of the program and the nature of the program, we all were given pagers, and so I had a pager, and I asked the nurse, the charge nurse, before I left, and they marked it in her chart: if anything happens, page me. I can be abreast of what's happening because she has no one else, and I can come back sooner if need be, or if she has some kind of, if there's anything that comes up between the time I'm gone and going home to rest and the time that she wakes up, anything like that. So there's that. I get home around 3 a.m. But the sun hadn't come up yet, so I think it was like 5 a.m., 4 or 5 a.m. The mom herself calls me, Jackie calls me hysterical. She's yelling on the phone, I'm leaving this hospital, they're taking my child, I can't let them take my child, I'm leaving. And I'm trying to understand what's happening. First of all, I was kind of asleep, so she wakes me up out of my sleep. I'm like, what's happening? She's explaining to me, but not really explaining to me what had happened. And so I get off the phone with her, I called the charge nurse, and I end up calling my manager as well to try and understand what was happening. And the long and short of it was, the person who was watching her older daughter had dropped the daughter off at the hospital without bringing the daughter up to where her mom was. But not only was that the issue, that she basically had abandoned the older child, who was, I believe, like 11 or 12 at the time. The issue was, because of the way hospital policy is set up, the mom is a patient, Jackie's a patient, her newborn is a patient, but the older daughter is not a patient. And so the nursing staff, the staff in general, couldn't take responsibility for the older child. Like, if there had been another adult, maybe the child would have been allowed to stay because the other adult would have been responsible for this child. But because this mom is in intensive care, the baby is in nursery care, she's a patient there, she'd just been born, this older child had no supervision, essentially, right? So hypothetically, if the mom had started hemorrhaging again or something had happened, there would be no one responsible for this child, and the liability would be on the hospital, right? It's horrible. So I'm over here okay, so now I understand what the issue is. I call my mom back and I'm like, is there anyone you can call? Give me a list of numbers. I already knew, but I'm trying to rationalize, is there anybody else that you can call to come and get this child? Can you call the lady back and see if she can come back and get the child? The lady wasn't answering her phone. I called, the mom called, no, she's not answering the phone. The hospital at this point and the nursing staff are saying their next thing is to call DCF to come and take custody of the older child. This is where I come in. Me, I'm distraught, hadn't slept, and I'm so connected to this woman. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna come get this child. So I call my manager back and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go get this child. She's gonna stay with me tonight. Mind you, I'm living at my parents' house. I have a bed, but where am I gonna put this other child? I have no idea. But I'm like, okay, I'll just have her here, and until her mom is discharged from the hospital, I'll just have her here, I guess. Like, I don't know what else to do. I wasn't thinking that far ahead. So I'm like, I'm gonna take custody of this child. Essentially, my manager told me, if you take custody of this child, you're gonna lose your job. Like, your job is on the line. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I called my sister. I'm like, hey, Fab, shout out to you, Fab. Hey, I need you to come pick up a child with me at a hospital. And my sister's down. She's game for whatever. So she's kind of like, all right, it's 5, 6 in the morning. She's like, all right, I'll meet you there. So what ended up happening was the mom called another parent from the child's after school program that she happened to have her number, and she called her and she was able to come and pick up the child. And I ended up getting to the hospital, I think like maybe 10 or 15 minutes after the other parent had come and picked up the child. So thankfully it worked out in that way. Now, this mom is probably one of the strongest people I've ever met in my entire life, because not only did she have the physical ailment of just literally losing massive amounts of blood, and getting transfused, and having just delivered a baby, and having just had a C-section, but she was willing to sign herself out of care, so leave the hospital AMA or against medical advice, and sign herself out of care in order to protect the well-being of her child, because she did not want her child to go into DCFS custody, which makes complete sense. All in all, this taught me a few things. One, I didn't want to interact with the healthcare system in that way, right? Having to make the really difficult decision to call DCF to come take custody of a child. It's just not something I wanted to participate ever again in my entire life, because of the stress and the anxiety and the pain and the heartache and the confusion for this child. Like, it all was just way too much. And number two, our healthcare system isn't built to support families. It just isn't. And it's really unfortunate. So that's the story.